Good morning, students. I am Dr. Ali Hassan, Associate Professor of English, and today we are going to begin a new poem of Gerald Hopkins, Gerald Manley Hopkins, and the name of the poem is The Sea and the Skylark. But before we begin the poem, The Sea and the Skylark, I would like to tell you something about Hopkins. Hopkins is a Victorian poet only by birth. His childhood was shaped by events of Victorian society. His date of birth is 1844 and he died in 1889. So that period belongs to the Victorian age. But he wrote against the current. In other words, you can say that he wrote poetry against the prevailing conditions. His poems was not published during his lifetime. It was published in 1918, almost 30 years after his death. It is a matter of thought that why his poems were published after a gap of 30 years. I will tell you later on. Hopkins had a religious background. On his mother's insistence, on his mother's saying, Bible reading had become a habit with him. At the age of 22, he was converted to Roman Catholicism. After 2 years, he joined the Jesuit Society and was ordained to priesthood. He became a priest at the age of 22. Hopkins spent a lifetime in a situation of conflict and self-inflicted attempts to discipline his intellectual vigor. The most of his time of his life, he attempted to make himself a disciplined priest so that he can perform his duty quite well. He felt that his poetic ability was contrary to his priestly duties. So that was there was a guilt in him. He thinks that writing poetry is not suitable for a priest because the people would think otherwise. The people would take otherwise his writing poetry. He fears it would not be approved by his seniors or superiors. You can say that by his elders. Hopkins' poetry belongs to modernism in many ways. There are elements of modernity in his poems. His treatment of subject and use of language is in line of modernism. Besides this, there is a lot of experimentation in his poems, particularly in rhythm and syntax. He experimented many things. He evolved sprung rhythm to express his thought in a compressed syntax. He invented, he introduced the sprung rhythm to express his thought in a compressed manner. And the sprung rhythm did not follow to any traditional metrical feet. It allowed the words to create his own rhythm. And beside this, he coined new words and also used archaic expressions. Archaic means the words which are not in fashion, which have been outdated, which are no more in use. But Hopkins have used those words frequently. So this is the introduction of the poet. So you can say that in many ways he is a modern poet, although he lived a life in the Victorian age. The present poem, The Sea and the Skylark, is a sonnet. You know that a sonnet is a poem which has 14 lines. There is a plurality of the title between the sea and the skylark. There is a plurality, there is a contradiction in the title. It is the representation, it is the representative of water and air. The sea and the skylark. The sea is the representative of air, and the skylark is the representative of air, and the sea is water. In the last 6 lines, the poet introduces a third point. It is the earth inhabited by man. Hopkins describes that God has created man and had given him supreme status. The man is the supreme creature of God. But human beings have lost this status due to unethical practices. Unethical means the immoral activities in which human beings are involved. The man has forgotten the simple fact that he was created by mud. The human beings are created by mud. Similarly, after death, he mixes with dust. It is his destiny. It is his fortune. The poet makes a very subtle use of repetition of words such as ear and ear, make and making, break or breaking, and he has also used frequently the alliteration such as wild, winch, will, etc. throughout the poem. So this is the introduction of the poem. Now let's move on to analyze the stanzas separately. Now look at this is the beginning of the poem. On year and year, two noises too old to end. Trench, right the tide that rains against the shore, with a flood or fall, low lull off or all roar, frequenting there while moon shall veer and wend. So the poem begins with two elemental voices of nature, two very primary voices of nature. The sea and the skylark are representative of water and air, as I told you. Now look at when the sea is stormy, the waves struck the shore violently. You must have noticed, if any one of you have witnessed or have seen the seashore, you will see that how the tides struck the shores, and it makes a terrible noise. The intensity of the tide increases when the moon is full. The changing shapes of the moon disturbs the calm of the sea. Sometimes there is low lull, but on many occasions there is a roaring sound, a storming sound. In this way, the poet describes beautifully one of the oldest sounds of the earth. As you know that 3/4 of the earth belongs to water. There is water, and these noises are very elemental. very primary noises which man must have heard when he was created, when he was given life on the earth. So on year and year, two noises hold to hand. So these of the two noises, the one noises of the tides, the waves which struck against the shore, and that makes a terrible noise, and this continues when the poet describes beautifully one of the oldest sounds of the earth. I hope that we will discuss the next stanzas of the poem in my next video, because I will not be able to finish it here. So